Welcome to War Bios, the podcast where we delve into the most pivotal conflicts in history, examining the strategic context, operational art, and human cost of warfare. I'm your host, General Biography, and today we're going to explore one of the most significant battles of the 20th century, the Battle of Seoul, 1950. The North Korean People's Army, backed by China and the Soviet Union, has crossed the 38th parallel, launching a surprise attack on South Korea. The United Nations, led by the United States, will soon respond with a coalition of forces from 16 countries, including Australia, Canada, France, and the United Kingdom. To understand the origins of this conflict, we must journey back to the end of World War II, when Japan's colonial rule over Korea came to an end. The peninsula was divided along the 38th parallel, with the Soviet Union occupying the north and the United States occupying the south. This division was meant to be temporary, but it ultimately became a permanent fixture, with the establishment of separate governments in each half. In the north, the Soviet-backed Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, emerged, led by Kim Il-sung, a charismatic leader who had fought against Japanese colonial rule. In the south, the United States-backed Republic of Korea, OROK, was established, led by Syngman Rhee, a staunch anti-communist. The two governments had fundamentally different ideologies and visions for the future of Korea. The months preceding the invasion saw an increase in border skirmishes and intelligence reports indicating a buildup of North Korean forces along the 38th parallel. On June 25, 1950, at 4:00 a.m., the North Korean army launched a surprise attack across the 38th parallel, quickly overrunning several key South Korean positions. The United Nations Security Council, in an emergency meeting on June 25, condemned the invasion and called for the immediate withdrawal of North Korean forces. The strategic importance of Seoul cannot be overstated. The city, with its rich history dating back to the 14th century, controlled access to the Han River and the heart of the Korean peninsula. Its capture would provide a crucial psychological boost to the invading forces and grant them control over the country's capital, major infrastructure, and key industrial centers. The city's defenders, comprising South Korean military units and a small contingent of American advisors, prepared to face the onslaught of the North Korean army. The next few days would see intense fighting, as the defenders struggled to hold back the invaders and protect the city from falling into enemy hands. The battle for Seoul was not just a clash of armies, it was also a struggle for the hearts and minds of the Korean people. The conflict would ultimately claim millions of lives, leave cities in ruins, and shape the course of modern history. As the North Korean army poured across the 38th parallel, the United Nations Security Council sprang into action, calling for an emergency meeting to address the crisis. On June 27, 1950, President Harry Truman authorized General Douglas MacArthur, Commander-in-Chief of the United States Far East Command, to send air and naval support to South Korea. This marked the beginning of a massive military buildup, as troops from 16 countries, including Australia, Canada, France, and the United Kingdom, began arriving in theater. The city of Seoul, with its rich history and strategic importance, was the focal point of the battle. The North Korean army, backed by Chinese and Soviet forces, launched a series of brutal attacks on the city, seeking to capture the capital and crush the South Korean government. The defenders, comprising South Korean military units and a small contingent of American advisors, fought valiantly, but they were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. On July 4, 1950, North Korean forces captured the city of Suwon, just south of Seoul, and began pushing north towards the capital. The United Nations Command, led by General MacArthur, launched a series of counterattacks, including the famous Pusan perimeter defense, which held off the North Korean advance and prevented a complete collapse of the South Korean army. As the battle raged on, the city of Seoul became a battleground, with fighting raging through the streets and buildings. The North Korean army, in an effort to break the United Nations lines, launched a series of human wave attacks, sacrificing thousands of soldiers in futile attempts to capture key positions. The defenders, meanwhile, fought with bravery and determination, holding off the attackers and slowly but surely pushing them back. One of the most significant events of the battle was the Incheon landing, which took place on September 15, 1950. A daring amphibious assault, led by General MacArthur, saw a force of over 40,000 United Nations troops land at the port city of Incheon, behind North Korean lines. The landing was a masterstroke, catching the North Koreans off guard and cutting off their supply lines. The battle for Seoul was all but won as the United Nations forces began pushing the North Koreans back towards the 38th parallel. The liberation of Seoul on September 28, 1950, marked a major turning point in the war. The city, though badly damaged, was finally free from North Korean occupation, and the South Korean government could begin rebuilding. The battle for Seoul had been one of the bloodiest and most intense of the war, with estimates suggesting that over 100,000 soldiers and civilians were killed or wounded. The city, once a thriving metropolis, lay in ruins, its buildings reduced to rubble, its people traumatized by the horrors of war. But even amidst the devastation, there was hope. The bravery and determination of the South Korean people, combined with the support of the United Nations, had saved the city from falling into enemy hands. The armistice negotiations, which began in July 1951, marked a significant turning point in the war. The United Nations Command, led by General Matthew Ridgway, faced off against the North Korean and Chinese delegations, led by General Nam Il and General Deng Hua, respectively. The talks were tense and often contentious, with both sides dug in on key issues such as the location of the demarcation line and the repatriation of prisoners of war. After 2 years of grueling negotiations, an armistice agreement was finally signed on July 27, 1953, at Panmunjom. The agreement established a ceasefire, created the demilitarized zone, DMZ, along the 38th parallel, and set up a framework for the repatriation of prisoners of war. While the armistice did not officially end the war, a formal peace treaty was never signed. It marked a significant shift in the conflict as both sides began to focus on rebuilding and consolidating their positions. The establishment of the DMZ had a profound impact on the Korean peninsula. The 2.5-mile-wide buffer zone, which stretches for over 150 miles, became one of the most heavily militarized borders in the world. The DMZ is guarded by thousands of soldiers, fortified with layers of barbed wire, mines, and watchtowers, and remains a potent symbol of the ongoing tensions between North and South Korea. In the aftermath of the Battle of Seoul, the city underwent a remarkable transformation. From 1953 to 1960, the South Korean government, with support from the United States and other international organizations, invested heavily in rebuilding and modernizing the city's infrastructure. New roads, bridges, and buildings were constructed, and the city's economy began to grow rapidly. However, the legacy of the Battle of Seoul also extends beyond the physical reconstruction of the city. The conflict had a profound impact on the psyche of the Korean people, leaving deep scars that would take decades to heal. The war resulted in an estimated 2–3 million casualties, including over 1 million civilian deaths, and left millions more displaced or orphaned. Today, the demilitarized zone remains a powerful reminder of the ongoing tensions between North and South Korea. Despite periodic outbreaks of violence and diplomatic crises, both sides have maintained a fragile peace, with the DMZ serving as a stark symbol of the divide between them. The legacy of the Battle of Seoul continues to shape the geopolitics of East Asia, with the United States, China, Japan, and other regional powers maintaining a delicate balance of power in the region. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography, reminding you to keep marching toward victory.